All right. I am so happy. Santa Barbara Literary Journal for a number of years when Angela Borda, she was one of the co-founders, right?
She was the founder, yeah.
Founder. Brought this to our attention. We not only had people like Mac reading, and I think Shelley was one of the readers. And of course, our dear friend, if you've been to the Writers Conference, Stephen Vessels, our dear late friend, who I miss terribly, especially his laughter. Just a wonderful, wonderful human being. But Fred Williams, who else? Throw some names out here. I can't offhand that's been in the journal.
Calla's been here before, right?
Calla has been here before. Calla will be
And her husband.
and
Where
Gwen.
is that
Yeah.
guy?
So
Gwen was, yeah.
we have a lot, and it's kind of a who's who, and then it's really thrilling to later on see them a few years down the road. They have their own books out, and we have an event for them. So this is not only a good start for some, it's a good sustaining effort for those who continue to contribute and write. And we are so pleased to bring Marianne Knight here in her second role as editor-in-chief, Poobah in charge, because Marianne herself is just a wonderful supporter of the literary committee. She's at all the events, but now that she's headed up, we are very confident that the Literary Journal will keep sustaining and going strong for years to come. So please welcome Marianne Knight.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate that. As Michael said, I'm Marianne Knight. I'm the publisher and the editor-in-chief of the Santa Barbara Literary Journal. And tonight we're here to celebrate the release of Volume 13, Mysterious Ways. This issue has an unusual provenance. About a year ago, we had an open submission call that brought in an abundance of outstanding work, enough that we were able to put 2 issues together from the collection. For the second issue, we gathered poems and stories that were magical or whimsical in some way, even things that dealt with painful topics like war and death, right? There was still some whimsy in these stories or poems. So tonight we have 5 of our contributors here to read for you. We have 3 fiction writers and 2 poets, and I will introduce each of them before they read. And then at the end, they're going to be available here for a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions for them, whether about their technique or their story, their inspirations, whatever, they'll be here for that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our first reader is Calla Gold. Calla Gold is one of the Literary Journal's fiction editors, as well as a contributor in Volume 13. You can come stand here.
Oh, okay.
Calla owned a jewelry design business for 38 years. Her indie nonfiction book, Design Your Dream Weddings, From Engagement to Eternity, was released on Valentine's Day in 2019. Her recent short stories and novelette have been published in Mobius Boulevard, Killer Nashville Magazine, and Confetti Magazine. Calla resides in Carpinteria with her husband and an assortment of mountain bikes. And she's going to read from her short story, The Girl Who Wrote the Storm.
This is my love story to writers. And I definitely need you to tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Michael would know. The Girl Who Wrote the Storm. Olinda set the gather basket down, dirt escaping through gaps in its rush bottom. Beans lay clean over layers of bitter radishes, beets, and rock roots, the source of the stubborn clumps of dirt. She sank into the chair, pulling her bad leg across the thigh of her good one to pry off the boot. Rubbing her twisted foot, she focused on the fluttering pea vine flowers out the window and the shadowed forest beyond. She'd come so close to being caught straying from the cottage. Gran kissed the top of Olinda's head. So dear a one. Stop filling her ears with your nonsense. She's brought more muck than gleanings for all her scrabbling about. Her granddad's gruff, scratchy voice sounded disapproving even when he asked someone to pass the parsnip mash. Olinda stared at the clean swept floor and the crumbles of dirt between door and table. She was beyond wishing for his praise. Her chest heated, tight, bursting to share her tidings. She would bide. In a short turning of the glass, her granddad slammed the wooden door, and soon the sound of an axe splitting logs drew forth from her a long sigh. He'll be after that for a bit. Gran laid aside her bone needles and the blanket squares she was knitting for the coming winter. Her gray-blue eyes met Olinda's. "You're fair twitchin', lass. What mischief have you?" "I wrote the story from your wish," Olinda whispered. "The grinding wheel once again turns. How be it made true?" "You speak of the old mill?" "Aye, it grinds again." Gran covered her mouth and turned away. "Oh, lass, I set you so many tests, and we've uncovered your gift at last." "My gift?" "Your letters. You wrote my wish for fine ground wheat for a proper loaf, and it came to pass. Olinda, you are a truth writer." A tear fell from Gran's eyes. "Words you scribe may come to pass, goddess willing." Olinda shook her head. "Grandass said I wasn't worth the price of a lame old cart horse." "Your grandass sides with the king's witless folly and his crusade against hedge witches, magic, and the old ways. He values only coin and the desecration of all I hold dear. He would abide not to suffer a witch at his hearth." "The hedge witches, charm makers, and keepers of the old ways are all women. Does the king send his soldier through the kingdom to kill women?" Olinda's hand covered her mouth. "Aye, that is why we hide our lessons." "This is most dire," said Olinda. "Aye, lass, that is why your miracle is a message from the goddess." "Pray, tell me why." "The prophecy, lass. A champion will appear when the need is nigh. Our king's bloody war rages. His soldiers would steal our sons, plunder our stores, and burn our huts for the sin of displaying a wreath of dried herbs, runes painted upon a doorpost, or singing an old chant to calm a baby. All for the profit of dust and sorrow." Gran squeezed her eyes shut and took a deep breath. "The very air I smell these past days is tainted with the smoke of death. Our people bide in this far valley, holding no royal favor. I wager the king's men could not find us here, and I'm no gift with this foot. I'd be first caught." "Olinda, attend. The gift of the unseen courses through our line. Your mother was fearful, and my only chance. Until you," Gran said, "clamp tight your tongue of this boon. Scratching of the quill is not for such as we." "I scribed a miracle?" "Aye, lass." Olinda dropped her head into her hands, hiding the joy writ upon her face.
I knew you thought you were going to go over. Thank you, Kella. That was great, and I really enjoyed the different voices that you did for the different characters. That
And I
was fun.
probably had like 3 different accents for similar
That's
characters.
okay.
It is what it is.
It was still fun. All right, thank you, Kella. Next up, we have Eddie Salato. Eddie is a California-based poet and a retired educator. She studied creative writing at College of Creative Studies, UCSB, and her work has appeared in Spectrum, Feminist Studies, Gunpowder Press, and other publications. A selection of her poems were used in a song cycle entitled Blood Poems and performed in Lisbon, Portugal. She is a member of CPITS, California Poets in the Schools, and Eddie is going to read 2 of her poems from Volume 13.
Nice.
After my mother died, I made prank calls. Somewhere in the vast tissued pages of the phone book, I found the name Love. Pages and pages of love. After school, I would sit cross-legged on my bedroom floor and dial love, then wait in silence for the tiny voice to answer. Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? I pictured children at a table where she had baked a cake or prepared stacks of pancakes, warm and fragrant maple syrup sticky on the table. This is Love in the kitchen, the clunky receiver pressed against her pale cheek, creases in her pretty forehead. wondering why there is only a hush on the other end. Only the sound that longing makes.
Wow.
Visitation. On a trip up north, I visit the house where we used to live. The pale pink crocus still crawl across the front walkway. Everything looks the same from the outside, as if, were I to open the front door, our lives would be exactly the same. Peter Rabbit on the dresser by the crib in the baby's room. The ghosts of dinners lingering like smoke in the kitchen window. And the names we whispered to each other when we weren't shouting still cling to the wallpaper. I want to pick up the phone and call our old number. Imagine you might answer and ask when I will be home.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Next, we have some more fiction. Mona Lee Rose is going to read for us next. Mona Lee's stories have appeared or are forthcoming in Tri-Quarterly, Pinch, Santa Monica Review, Somerset Review, and Puerto del Sol, among others. She is an associate fiction editor at Narrative Magazine and is honored that one of her stories appears in the flash fiction anthology, The Best Small Fictions, guest edited by Amy Hempel. She lives and writes in Santa Barbara, and Mona Lee is going to read from her short story, Ear.
Thank you. This is my second time appearing in the journal. I'm very pleased, and thank you so much for asking me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Constance turns the metronome dial up one notch, then another. Not enough for the tin-eared boy to notice, but enough to make his fingers work harder. His sticky, fat little fingers smearing Cheeto dust and Mountain Dew on her pristine keys. Perhaps enough to make him whine over dinner to his helium-breasted cartoon of a mother until she shrieks, "You sniveling twit! You shame of my blood!" her pitch rising till it shatters every flat screen, rhinestone-crusted iPhone, and golden doodad they hold dear in their Philistine little souls. Does God still punish hubris in this way? He should. The grandfather clock frees Constance with 5 peals, B flat. Her last lesson of the week has blessedly come to an end. She locks the door behind the boy, pulls the window shades, wipes each piano key with a cloth diaper dipped in distilled water, watches a cube of frozen lasagna turn in the microwave. She eats at the kitchen table, left hand in her lap, napkin at her right elbow, because she may be alone, but she is not a savage. Washes, dries, stacks her dish in the cupboard, files the week away in a tidy mental folder labeled Good Riddance. Constance allows the smallest of sighs to drift through her apartment. At precisely 6:05 p.m., she walks to the courthouse sunken gardens, folding chair under one arm, folded blanket over the other. She snakes her way through the languorous bodies stretched every which way across the grass, a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah ripe for smiting. In front of the stage, she plants her chair in the center of her spread blanket, folds her hands in her lap, and waits for the program to begin. Ms. Potter, a round-cheeked smile invades her line of sight. She retreats to the chair's furthest reaches. "I knew that was you," the invader says. "The second I saw the back of your head, I'm all, that's Ms. Potter." "Mrs. Potter," Constance says. "Do you remember me? Missy Adams. I took lessons like forever ago." Missy Adams, exquisite ear, agile fingering, one of the few students in a dour parade of dullards who showed true promise. Then, now an intruder encroaching on her personal space. "Yes, Missy, how nice to see you." Constance pronounces each word in staccato so there can be no mistake. The body connected to the smile plants itself on Constance's blanket like an invited guest, bare legs and arms crossing the Scotch plaid at disconcerting angles. Mrs. Potter, who'd have thought? Constance reaches over her armrest to brush dirt off the blanket with exaggerated hand sweeps. "The program will start soon," she says, nodding toward the music stands posted like sentries on stage. The oblivious thing has the nerve to smile. I know, right? I'm meeting friends for happy hour, but saw the sign and thought, that's what I need, a little music. Missy slips a knapsack off tan shoulders. Weird thing is, I thought about you just yesterday. Constance stops brushing. No one thinks of Constance, not even Constance. I 3D printed a half-scale replica of a keyboard my freshman year. I take it out when I need to vent. If I'm cramming for a test, head full of quadratic equations, it really helps too. She pounds her fingers on the blanket like a lunatic. One can't play a paper keyboard. Not paper, plastic. Looks totally legit, but not legitimate. Your little toy lacks hammers, strings, dampers. You can't possibly know if you're playing the piece correctly. Purple-tipped hair halos Missy's bright eyes. That's the best part. I always nail it. Constance fingers the wiry gray atop her own head. Ridiculous. No, for real. The music takes me out of my head. Debussy if I'm anxious, Beethoven if I'm tired. Bach, well, everyone knows what Bach's for. Constance studies the young face, the unguarded way Missy's lips part to reveal a gap between her front teeth. Regret hasn't found her yet. What need could she possibly have for Bach? I hope you'll read the rest of the story.
I think one of the things I really love about this issue is how many interesting characters there are in it, like Missy and Constance and Olinda and Gran and all the other really cool characters that you'll find in the book.
Yes.
So next up we have some more poetry. And next we have Valerie Gerard, who just joined us after work. So thank you very much for coming. You can come stand with me.
Okay.
Valerie has practiced holistic health for over 40 years. She has also explored the art world as a theater director, playwright, composer, musician, poet, oil painter, photographer, and published author. She's also a really outstanding chiropractor,
Yes.
which is not in her list here, but I have to give her props for that. Because I'm able to stand here right now. Currently, she is finishing her third nonfiction book. She has contributed articles to magazines, shared her insight on health and spirituality. Valerie teaches meditation and yoga and feels a strong connection to the mystery of life and its valuable lessons. Additionally, she has created and uploaded more than 350 meditation videos on her YouTube channel at Quantum Whisperer. So she's going to read 2 poems that are in volume 13.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I was very inspired by just the name of this journal, Mysterious Ways. And yeah, I recently moved to a canyon. And so there's some inspiration from that canyon in these 2 poems. I face the dawn's glimmer. Cloudless illuminations peek over the distant ridge. They bid me settle now in reverie. My coffee steams its essence into the morning's chill. A stop to gather guidance, as I often will. This moment, an emptiness warbles, clanging for attention. I surrender to its call. Then, something emerges silently, unraveling my pack with time, even as bird and brook transmit their secret code, a call to drop into the unseeable. I inhale the dusty scent of autumn, then whisper, come to me, mystery, weave through me your hallowed tendrils of the unknown. I exhale, empty, open, receive, as I long for the moment's reveal. There. It's the void. The void, of course. The doer's nemesis. With this, all thoughts cease. A portal opens, an invitation to drop into nothingness, to view its event horizon and acquiesce to its undoing into no thing. I surrender, then receive this offering. mystery song, so subtle. The void, of course, is yours to stream, empty now into nothing's dream. There's nothing to know and nothing to see. Free yourself through the mystery. It's all within, as me and thee, and now take rest and nothing be. In the great silence then, nothing is. The sanctuary of becoming. This next one's called You Hear My Call. The golden light reflects off your tawny breast, glimmering in the soft wave of the treetop branches as the canyon blusters, spurts of tingling breeze, then wind, promising wildness tonight. Earlier, I asked for your presence on this eve's half moonrise, to perch on the guardian's post that sways high with the fluctuations of the canyon's breath. No expectations, please. It's not allowed in this reflection of the one. Just a humble request amidst the rustling of long leaves as they crackle and wave to their cohorts across the canyon. You, Hawk, are my spirit ally. I look to you for confirmation that I am able to connect to the field. Listen, I honor your presence with sweet murmuring, hopeful you feel the love. Rejoicing that you would answer my call with the penetrating gaze of your silence. A great little notation here. So I live in the canyon. There's a deck that overlooks the canyon. And I went and I practiced this, rehearsed it. About 10 minutes later, the hawk showed up.
Oh, that's great.
And to the point, I don't ask all the time, but when I ask, usually shows up. And one more little story. It's, on its special branch there. And I said, it would be really nice if you would just come down once in a while and just be closer so I could really see you. So it was my birthday morning. And I hear the strangest call. And I'm like, what is that? And I step out onto the deck. And this swoop happens. And right there, that hawk landed. And it was looking down the canyon. And I said, well, could I just see your face? And it turned, it looked down at me like this.
Wow.
It says, are we good? Off it went.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you. We have some hawks at our house too, and we have so much fun watching them. It's like hawk alert. The hawk's in the backyard every day, but it's still like the hawk is there.
And I even heard one driving here. I go, okay, it's gonna be about you. Just hang on.
Awesome. All right, well, we are gonna actually conclude the reading portion with one more fiction reader, and she's actually gonna read her whole piece. So Jenny Berman has an MFA in fiction from the Iowa Writers Workshop. She's been published in Tin House, Black Clock, the LA Weekly, Los Angeles Magazine, Cincinnati Magazine. I think I had something wrong here. Okay, Akashic.
Mondays or
Okay, and other publications. I've not heard of that one. So Jenny is going to read her short story, Facebook Necropolis.
Thank you. There are no hawks in this story. I wish there were. Facebook Necropolis. You ask what we did all those nights in January. Picture this, we drank Diet Pepsi because Dan no longer drank. And we stayed up telling stories. We scrolled. We weren't physically underground, but we were underground all the same. Hiding out from Dan's wife and all the people in Madison who knew us. Never mind, they were so many miles away.
Dan had blackout maroon curtains and a large round diner clock with green neon. Facebook was about 10 years old. This was before the great migration to Instagram, a movement that would leave us behind. Social media platforms like cemeteries go out of style, get too crowded. The clock face read just after 1 a.m. Outside, the surf pounded. It sounded like the highway. You ask what the highway sounds like. It sounds like a pulsing artery, blood flowing at great speed. Advance, retreat, breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. The Jersey Shore has a particular kind of pulse, slightly evil. It's the afterlife in here, Dan said one night as a wave crashed on the beach. For a moment, I thought he meant the room where we were holed up, his bedroom. It would have made sense the way we were alone and telling our life stories, as though our lives were finished products. We'd done all our living, as though hiding out wasn't living. He meant Facebook was the afterlife. We lay on Dan's bed, naked, Dan's laptop open at the end of the bed. It used to be people faded away and you never heard a word about what city they lived in, whether they had kids, he said. Now you can go into this, he hesitated, looking for the word, into this museum and see who they married, what they looked like at 53. He held one finger in the air, more to say. After 53, they stopped posting pictures. They're still posting, showing you the vacations, but their bodies are. He closed his hands into fists and exploded them. Gone. I shook my head. It's like the afterlife, but only at one particular point in time, I said, when Dan gave me a dark look. Only for one moment, I continued. Things keep on. Things keep on, I mean. I pointed to the screen where a silver-haired man, a friend of Dan's, presumably younger than 53, stood in front of a zinc bar with a hamburger in each hand, a severe look on his face. That's probably not the last thing he'll post. I disagree, Dan interrupted, turning over and facing me. It goddamn may well be the last thing he posts. He rolled away from me. Getting out of bed, he hunted for his boxers. God knows he could be breathing his last breath this very second. And then, Dan gestured, palm up at the screen. And then, that's the last thing he ever posted, 2 hamburgers. Which one is he going to eat first? The last thing he ever said. His gravestone will be somber, but the last thing he said on here was something about 2 hamburgers. Have I offended you? He pulled on his khakis, then a t-shirt with thin brown horizontal stripes over cream, like something a 10-year-old boy would wear. Dressed now, he lay back down, the laptop open at the end of the bed, moved closer to me, and I thought he was going to put his arm around my waist. But he put his hands on the laptop keyboard and started scrolling. Look at this, he said, stopping the scroll at a user whose avatar was a mean-looking tabby cat. A string of happy birthdays at the top of his feed. Dead. This dude has been in the ground for 2 years. And look at all these people wishing him happy birthday. 2 weeks ago. Dear Nathaniel, Dan read, you are missed. Happy birthday and sweet dreams, Prince. He scrolled to another dead friend. See, it's a necropolis in here. Was it worth pointing out that a necropolis was not the afterlife? I decided not. It became a game. The dead became our entertainment, along with the pre-dead, as we called our surviving Facebook friends. For 5 or 6 nights, surf pounding, we searched Dan's friends, and he told their stories, or sometimes we collaborated and made up their fates, laughing, talking, our words falling to bits in the air. That one, he's going to die in a Price Chopper parking lot. The old woman he cut off in the express line is going to ram her cart into his backside. Oh, I'm so sorry. You've fallen. Someone call 911. It's all so sad, Ben said one night. People are so sad. He stood and paced. We'd been meeting here on and off for about a year. Outside of Facebook, Dan and I shared just a few friends. Carl was one. Dan trusted Carl. Carl didn't judge Dan for living separately from his wife. The three of us went out to dinner now and then, or to the movies. One time I looked up from the table at the Thai Korean restaurant in town, and Carl was looking at me intently. I returned his gaze and he shook his head. What the hell? I wanted to ask. Does this head shake mean? Was he judging me, even as he didn't judge Dan? Feeling sorry for me? What did he know? Dan sat on the bed hard enough to make the mattress bounce and put his hand on my hip and pulled the striped t-shirt over his head. All night that shirt had been going over his shoulders in one direction or another. Let me tell you something, he said. The trick to writing about people you know. He paused, aiming the balled-up shirt at the chair in front of his desk, but missed. It landed on the keyboard of his iMac. The trick to writing about people one knew, he continued, was to mix up all the real-life details so no one can ever be sure you're writing about them. I didn't need to be told this, but the words ring in my head now as I read story after story of his, about women the protagonists hated and loved. None of it is about me. He wrote from his life, but everything he ever wrote about happened before we met. For me, it was a different story, of course, because I was just starting out. After Dan went back to Wisconsin, he told people I was a psycho bitch because, he said, I'd been telling people about our affair, which was true. I told everyone about it. That changed everything. He said I'd given him no choice but to go back, which he was probably planning to do anyway. I knew how this was going to end up from the start, or I thought I did. Call it a lack of imagination. I could only imagine the most predictable outcome. Another thing he told me, he liked to keep people off balance. Keep them guessing about where you stood with them. Everyone except you, he said, but that would change. On our last night in New Jersey, he held me and said, we wasted our time together, Lynn. I realize now it was our best moment. I learned of his death on Facebook. One day I thought of him. This was several years after that last embrace. He used to call me once or twice a year, ranting about how he'd cut his index finger on a can opener or had to have a salivary gland removed. And it had been a while since I'd heard from him. As I did every now and then, I opened his Facebook page to see if there were any new photos or new posts. On this day, there were a lot of new photos, and I knew right away. That's the first thing they do when someone dies, post pictures to stake their claim to the history. His last death had been a day earlier. A short while later, there were funeral arrangements. His son wrote, anyone can come. Not that I would have gone. I have no business in medicine. You ask what the last thing he posted, you ask what was the last thing he actually posted, his final statement. It was a picture of himself gazing mildly, not Dan-like at all, into the camera and the caption, WTF. A few years later, I finally figured out how to write about Dan. I pretended we had not frittered away all those nights scrolling through Facebook, laughing and joking, and never getting real. I pretended we'd let ourselves go, been honest, that we told each other everything. The character who emerged seemed Dan-like, true to Dan, more Dan than Dan had ever been. So much so it was an entirely new person, and that made me feel like my possession of his memory, our memory, was complete somehow. I wrote a 13,076 word story. I tried to paste it into my Facebook page, but it wouldn't stick. Too much language for the afterlife, I suppose. WTF.
Thank you very much. That was really funny. Fun story. So that is the conclusion of our reading portion. And I would like to now open up for any questions that anyone may have or anything you'd like to ask any of our contributors or questions you have about the journal. Put anyone on the spot. How about maybe somebody would like to talk about the inspiration. Kala, what inspired you to write The Girl Who Wrote the Storm?
Well, I think I started writing it right after I went to the last Santa Barbara Writers Conference, which I'm going to again this year. Hope to see my writer friends there. And I was just feeling this affection for writers. I wanted to write a love story to writers. And one of the final workshops I went to was on fantasy and mystical experience